Hey Harmony House, welcome to Chapter Book Story Time. We are continuing to read The Magic Misfits, the second story. So get comfy and get ready to enjoy the story. So we're on Chapter 7 today, but in yesterday's chapter we continued to learn more about this new character, Sandra Santos. She's not a kid, she's not a child, she's a grown woman who is friends, or old friends I suppose, with Mr. Dante Vernon. Sandra was one of his best friends when they were kids. She was a part of their magic group that they called the Emerald Ring. And they would practice their magic together. And we also learned that Sandra is a psychic, or at least that's what she does for work. She basically reads like energies. She tries to tell people about their past, their present, and their future. And she's got like a crystal ball on her purse and things like that. And Ridley was questioning whether or not she could really read people's minds, or if it was just a magic trick like what Carter does. And then Sandra said that she was in town because her childhood home was there and she wanted to fix it up. No one's been living in her childhood home for a long time. It was a bit run down. She wanted to fix it up, but she can't live in it right now because it's a mess, basically. And so she asked Mr. Dante Vernon if she could stay with them. And unfortunately, Mr. Vernon had to say that they didn't have any space for her, especially now that Carter is living with them. He didn't have any space for her, and so he said, you know what? We'll set you up with a nice room at the hotel, the Grand Oak Resort, which you would think would be great. Like, she has a place to stay, and it's at a nice hotel. Fantastic. But Layla noticed that Sandra still seemed a little disappointed. And Layla's feeling a little suspicious of Sandra right now. She feels like something might be going on here. So, I don't know. Let's see. Let's continue reading in Chapter 7 and see if we find out any more about Sandra and what she's really doing back in the town of Mineral Wells. Let's see. Across the street from their home, Layla and Carter sat in the grass under the shade of the gazebo. The park was the perfect place for afternoon practice. Layla pulled a loop of string from her pocket and wrapped it around her wrists, trying to figure out a new way to bind herself without anyone else's help. Carter had brought a pack of cards and was practicing shuffling them, making false cuts and fancy flourishes before returning the cards to the original order. He made the cards spring from one hand to the other. He even tried flipping one card behind his head, though he didn't manage to catch it. When it fell to the grass, his face turned pink with embarrassment. "Impressive," said Layla. "You've been practicing." Carter frowned. Apparently not hard enough. "You'll get there," Layla said. After a moment, she added, "Sometimes I wish that I was psychic, so I could unlock what's inside my dad's head. I feel like there's so much I don't know about him." "Like what?" Carter asked. He continued making the cards spring back and forth between his hands. "Like who he was when he was our age. Has he told you much about his relationship with Lyle, your father? They were best friends after all." Carter gathered the cards into a single stack. "I wish he'd tell me more. In time, I'm sure he will." "I want to know about his old magic club. We've already met Bobby Boskowitz." Remember Bobby Boskowitz? Do you know who that is? We found out in the last book that Bobby Boskowitz is also B.B. Bazo. "I want to know about his old magic club. We've already met Bobby Boskowitz, and now Sandra Santos shows up out of the blue. I can't believe we don't even know the names of the other members." "Have you ever asked him?" "I only learned about the Emerald Ring when you came to town. I'm not sure he would have confessed very much if we hadn't already figured it out for ourselves." "Maybe that's what he wants us to do. Find our own answers. Or maybe he's embarrassed about his past. I know I was. Why do you think I kept secrets when I first met you?" Maybe. Layla said, unsure. So Layla's questioning her father's past. She says she doesn't actually know that much. She didn't even learn about his group of best friends and their magic club, the Emerald Ring, until Carter came and they were able to find the picture and figure it out for themselves. So, I mean, after learning about Bobby Boskowitz, aka BB Bozzo, who turned out not to be such a great guy, and now suddenly Sandra Santos is back in town, Layla's getting a little suspicious. If you were psychic, said Carter, what would you want to know? I'd want to know that the Magic Misfits won't end up like the Emerald Ring. I'd like to believe that the six of us will never have a falling out. She thought of the girls who'd been so cruel to her at Mother Margaret's home. She tried not to cringe. I hope we'll always be friends. So she's learning more and more that her dad's group of friends when they were kids, the Emerald Ring, none of them are really friends anymore. None of them talk anymore. And so, Layla knows what it's like to not have friends. Back at the orphanage, she didn't really have friends. The other girls were mean to her. And so now that she does, she knows how important that is and how happy it makes her and how loved it makes her. And so she said if she was psychic, she would want to know that her group of friends won't end up like the Emerald Ring, that they'll stay friends, right? Unlike Mr. Dante Vernon, who doesn't really keep in touch with anyone from his friend group anymore. And Layla's decided that's something that's important to her. She wants to stay friends with these people, with Carter and Ridley and Theo and Ollie and Izzy. She doesn't want to lose that friendship. She knows how important it is. I hope we'll always be friends. Carter rubbed his temples. I predict that will totally happen. Layla smiled. I'd also want to look into the past. I'd find out why Bobby Boskowitz turned into BB Bozzo. And I'd learn how come Sandra and my dad weren't in touch all these years. Don't you think it's weird? Carter nodded. Maybe they all just kind of grew apart. Sometimes things happen that we can't control. I mean, my dad ended up far away from mineral wells. He left the Emerald Ring behind, but I'll bet he never forgot about them. Me, if I were a psychic, I'd want to know what happened to my parents. Maybe there's a way to figure out all these things without having strange mental powers. That would be brilliant, Carter smiled. I'll help you if you help me. Deal. Want to head back inside? Asked Layla. Papa will be home from work soon, and I want to clean up before everyone else arrives. Do you think I should wear my straitjacket to dinner? Carter laughed. How will you eat with your arms bound? I'll figure out a way. Maybe I can incorporate it into my act. As the pair crossed the grass near the gazebo, a loud screech startled them. They froze. It had come from the shadowy space underneath the gazebo. All right, before we go to that, I want to talk about the deal that they just made. So Carter wants to find out. He said if he were a psychic, he'd want to know what happened to his parents, because we still haven't found out what happened to his parents. All we know is that they just disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. And Layla says that she would want to learn a little bit more about the history of the Emerald Ring. She wants to know how Bobby Boskowitz became this mean BB Bozzo, and she wants to know what happened between Sandra and her dad. So she wants to look. So it looks like they both kind of want to look into the past. Layla wants to learn more about the Emerald Ring, her dad's magic group, and Carter wants to learn what happened to his parents. Do you think they'll be able to figure it out? Well, they're going to help each other, so I don't know. I'm excited. I hope they figure it out because I want to know. All right, back to the story. As the pair crossed the grass near the gazebo, a loud screech startled them. They froze. It had come from the shadowy space underneath the gazebo. Eyes wide, Carter asked, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Layla held her breath. "If I am, does it mean I'm psychic?" Carter blinked. At the same time, they both whispered, "The monkey." Which monkey are they talking about? Do you remember? It was the very beginning of this book when a monkey broke into Layla's house and they figured out that it was BB Bazo's old monkey. So they think this is the monkey again. Together they knelt cautiously in the grass and peered through the diamond-shaped gaps between the wood slats beneath the gazebo. A small shape cowered at the far side. Soft chittering sounds echoed out of the dim space. "The little thief is back," Carter said. "Let's catch him before he tries to steal my dad's ledger again." Layla unraveled the string from her fingers and quickly improvised a small harness using simple knots that wouldn't harm him. She made loops from his neck and torso and arms. They treaded softly around the edge of the structure, but as they neared the other side, a blur of fur dashed out and away. The monkey raced across the grass and the street before disappearing behind the barber shop on the far corner. "Aw, Pickles!" Layla cried out. Someone down the street shrieked. "Crud," said Carter, pulling shortbread crumbs from his pocket. "Next time I'll be better prepared." "If there is a next time," Layla answered with a sigh. "Should we go after it?" "Nah, I have a feeling he'll be back." So they weren't able to catch him this time, but Carter says, "I have a feeling he'll be back." Bursting through the door of the magic shop, Layla called out, "Dad! Dad! You'll never guess who we saw outside!" Mr. Vernon looked up from a book at the counter and raised an eyebrow. "Well, can I at least try?" Layla and Carter groaned as Vernon held his forefingers to his temples and closed his eyes. So when they're talking about holding their forefingers to their temples and closing their eyes, he's pretending he's a psychic. He's like, "I will guess who you saw outside. Let's see. Was it the ghost of Abraham Lincoln?" They shook their heads. "Babe the Blue Ox?" "Nope." "Johnny Appleseed?" "Oh, I know. Oberon, King of the Fairies." Carter blurted out, "It was Bazo's monkey." Layla nodded. "He was hiding underneath the gazebo and ran off when we tried to catch him." Mr. Vernon sighed. "We'd better go around and close all the windows. I'll put in a call to animal control. Can't have him disrupting our special dinner tonight." "Animal control?" Carter echoed. "What will they do with him?" "They'll catch him and lock him up," said Mr. Vernon, "just like Bazo." Carter flinched. Is there such a thing as monkey jail? Dear friends, you'll be happy to know that there is no such thing as monkey jail, at least not in Mineral Wells. "It might be safer for him to be in a cage than on the street," Mr. Vernon pondered out loud. "A cage?" Layla cried. "That's terrible." "He just wants a home," Carter whispered. Layla perked up. "Maybe we could adopt him." Mr. Vernon chuckled. "Let's take one thing at a time. How about you two clean up the house a bit? You can even decorate the dining room upstairs for our guest of honor." He grabbed a black top hat off a stand, then tossed it to Layla. "Use pieces of the shop if you want. It's always nice to remember that we're surrounded by magic here." Layla reached inside the hat and pulled out a never-ending multicolored scarf. Red and green and yellow and blue and purple and orange. Her father was obviously trying to distract them from the idea of the monkey running scared outside. Classic misdirection, Layla thought. "Hurry now," Mr. Vernon added, snapping his fingers excitedly. "A good magician should never be caught unprepared when the audience arrives." And that is the end of chapter 7. So, we know that Bazo's monkey is still out there, and Layla and Carter want to catch it, I think, but not to do anything bad. They just they want to give it a home because it's not safe for this monkey to just be running around by itself in the town of Mineral Wells, right? It could get hurt. It could accidentally hurt someone else. So they want to help the monkey, but also they don't want this monkey breaking into their house and trying to steal things. And we learned a little bit more about what Layla and Carter have planned, or what they want to try to do, I suppose. It's not necessarily a plan. It's what they want to try to do. They're kind of intrigued by this idea of being a psychic and being able to look into the past or the future. And while they can't read anyone's minds, they're not psychics, they still want to try to find a way to learn more about Mr. Vernon's past and his magic club, the Emerald Ring. That's what Layla wants to find out. And Carter wants to learn more about what happened to his parents. So I'm curious if they'll be able to do that. They made a deal to help each other. And meanwhile, there's still this situation with Sandra. And Layla's still a little suspicious of her. And in the next chapter, they're going to have their dinner together. So maybe we'll learn more about Sandra in the next chapter. There's so much to learn in this story. I'm excited. Learning about the monkey, learning about Carter's parents, learning about the Emerald Ring, learning about Sandra. So many mysteries. So I'm excited to keep reading with you. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.